Top story this half an hour, that Steele dossier. The Wall Street Journal out with a report this morning. Watchdog probes the FBI reliance on the dossier and surveillance of Trump aide. This was actually 2 days ago, earlier this week. It says the Justice Department is looking into whether the agency continued surveillance of the former Trump aide, Carter Page, while the dossier's credibility was being questioned. On Sunday Morning Futures, I spoke with House Intel Committee ranking member Devin Nunes about spying of Trump campaign officials. Do you believe that the FBI had all of these sources out to entrap people from the Trump campaign so that they could claim that there was a conspiracy, that Donald Trump was colluding with the Russians? But in fact, they put all of these sources all across the world to get to members of the Trump campaign.
Well, remember what I said on your show last year?
Yep.
I think I actually said, I think I said it first on your show, as I recall. I said, I'm not worried about whether or not they were spying on the Trump campaign. That is fact. What I want to know is how many spies with an S were involved in this. And I mean, and this is why we have to get to the bottom of this. Is why all this information needs to come out.
Joining me right now in an exclusive interview, the man at the center of it all, former foreign policy advisor to Donald Trump, Carter Page. Carter, it's good to have you on the program this morning. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, Mariah.
And this is a really important story. You would think that anybody on either side of the aisle would be upset, bothered by innocent American citizens getting wiretapped for no reason. Your name came out in the press back in September 2016 after what we believe was an article, fake news really, that was leaked to Yahoo. There was Michael Isikoff was the writer. He obviously was the recipient of information from Intel sources where it says U.S. Intel officials probe ties between Trump advisor and the Kremlin. That's when your name first became synonymous with all of this. Tell us what happened from there.
Look, I started actually months before that. I start getting these calls from various contacts of Fusion GPS. First, respectable news agencies like Wall Street Journal, Washington Post, New York Times, all asking me about these same false allegations, which this London-based opposition research guy is getting paid, tons of money by the DNC and also by the, by the same time, he's getting these undercover payments from the DNC, but also getting money from the FBI, as Judicial Watch has been able to uncover.
And were you colluding with the Russians? Were you colluding with the Russians to try to get Donald Trump elected?
I have always followed the law, both in this country and everywhere. And it's interesting because not one thing, I probably spent more time than any Trump supporter that's known in Russia in 2016. Not one time did anyone ask me to do anything illicit, illegal, even unethical in any way.
But you have plenty of sources. This has been your business. You've worked with the FBI before. You've worked with intel agencies before about surveillance. So you were a friend of the FBI.
Not only was I a friend, I also did it as a upstanding American citizen for free. For service to my country, I was not paid 1 cent. But as Judicial Watch has uncovered through their court proceedings and FOIA requests, 11 payments to this guy Steele in 2016. At the same time, he's getting funneled money undercover through this law firm, Perkins Coie, to do this opposition research and basically funnel it back into the eventually into the FISA court.
So your name gets involved and you become a target of Fusion GPS and this dossier. Your name gets into the press as a result of them leaking these stories, and you start getting death threats. Your life changes completely.
Absolutely. And you really have to kind of go low profile. It's basically living an international fugitive lifestyle. And the sad part about it is, Maria, I tried telling Director Comey about this, sent him a letter on Sunday, September 25th, 2016, right after that Yahoo News article. And, calling this thing a witch hunt and just nothing. They did nothing. And the months that followed, In October and in January, he sends 2 false affidavits to the FISA court, abuse of process in a U.S. federal court.
So as a way to get a warrant from the FISA court to wiretap you, and when you wiretap you, you're not just getting your phone calls, you're getting all the communication. Explain to the audience what wiretapping is.
Well, what's interesting about it is, I think these fake media outlets are always trying to spin this as, well, he left the campaign. I took a leave of absence from the campaign, but all the people I was working with, all the people I knew said, you're definitely still part of the Trump movement, And so I was a big supporter. And unfortunately, the people I stayed in touch with, all of our communications, not just wiretap, I got hacked for over a year. They talk about a couple of Podesta emails and DNC emails. All of my communications with members of the Trump team, Trump supporters, were all intercepted, illegally based on these false affidavit by people like Comey and Dana Boente and all these guys.
Just to be clear, you were never charged with anything.
Not only was I never charged, all these witch hunt interrogations I went through with Mueller's band of angry Democrats and these various Senate and House committees, they never even asked me one question which even comes close to doing anything illegal in terms of things I actually did.
Right.
It was all things that these Democrat consultants were paying for to basically smear my name and, get me in trouble, and actually leading to these death threats that you correctly alluded to.
And it was very convenient because you were part of the Trump movement, and they had wiretaps and hacking going on, so they saw all your emails, they saw who you were communicating with. Maybe they got a sense of what the Trump campaign was planning against their girl, Hillary Clinton, who they were obviously protecting. So what I want to ask you about is not just the hacking and the wiretap, because they used the articles that we referred to, the Yahoo article, as part of evidence to get the wiretap against you. So it was the media and it was the dossier. That's what they presented to the FISA court.
Absolutely. And, also in this fake Mueller report, which came out, all of his band of angry Democrats, the majority of people that interrogated me in the grand jury were significant Democrat donors, right? And so basically it's just a cleanup act right now to try to make me look as bad as possible, make President Trump look as bad as possible and his entire campaign and, all of his supporters.
What's really incredible here is we are learning what the FBI uses in terms of their sources and methods. And this is really a dangerous part of this because in addition, because of this cabal of people, these fraudsters like Peter Strzok and the others opening up everything that the FBI does because now there's an investigation on, we are learning that the FBI uses informants. And George Papadopoulos told us about this on Sunday. I had George Papadopoulos on, who had all of this outreach from intel officials from Britain, from Australia, from Italy, and they were informants luring him in. It was entrapment. Listen to what George Papadopoulos said on Sunday. You're working for Ben Carson. You're in touch with the Trump campaign. Then Ben Carson drops out in January of 16. So you are left without working. You don't have a job. And somebody reaches out to you on LinkedIn. Tell me about that.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was contacted by this company called the London Center for International Law Practice. I was living in London at the time. I was in the energy business in Europe. And they contacted me out of the blue. We'd like for you to come and work for us as a director over here. And I didn't think too much of it. And I went over there. And this company ended up being some sort of spark that ended up probably changing my life and the last 2 years of this country.
So there you go. Papadopoulos gets this outreach on LinkedIn. Come work for us. He goes to work for this law center, this International Law Center of Law Practices. He's working there. 3 months later, he tells them, I'm leaving. I'm going to go to Rome. I want to go to work for the Trump campaign. When you tell a company that you're leaving, what company says, wait, before you go to Rome. We want to pay for a trip for you to go to Rome because we want you to meet these important people. And he met this guy, Mifsud, who told him that Russia had Hillary Clinton emails. You also had outreach from people that you didn't know. Somebody sent you an email saying, come to London, come to this conference. Who reached out to you?
You know, I got invited by Cambridge University. They were putting on a conference. The difference for me is they had Madeleine Albright is flown there in business class with her handler. And, you know, some Democrats as well. But I got like a last minute ticket.
But they lure you to go to this conference and then you meet different people there. Did you feel in retrospect that these were informants, or you're not sure?
You know, I don't know. There's a lot of things I don't know. In this illicit FISA warrant, which Mr. Comey submitted, and Dano Buente and all these guys, you know, it starts out saying that George Papadopoulos and Carter Page were supporters or identified as candidate one's foreign policy team. But then, you know, tons of pages of blank pages.
Yeah, let me show this. Let me show this.
So
this is the FISA warrant.
FISA warrant.
This is what people want the president to declassify. Look at all this. It's all blacked out. So they want the president to declassify this so that we could know exactly what was in the FISA warrant. How did they get a warrant to wiretap you?
Well, look, you know, I think I talked to George Papadopoulos maybe, you know, a couple of times. I can't even remember. You know, we had a big team of foreign policy experts we were working with. To the extent under these many pages, they have stuff related to these crazy things that they were pulling with him and others.
Right.
You know, if all these blank lines relate to that stuff, it is just the ultimate scandal. You know, I had basically no interaction with him.
Have you had any interaction recently with Donald Trump?
I've never spoken to candidate Trump, President-elect Trump, President Trump in my life.
You've never spoken to Donald Trump?
No. You know, and again, I'm just, you know, it's as President Trump said, or President-elect Trump said in the Hilton late on the election night, you know, this isn't a campaign, it's a movement. And I was just part of a team of people that really loved what he was talking about in terms of the initiatives for our country. And, you know, I just wanted to help in any way I can.
One of the people who I'm told reached out to you, and we think maybe he was an informant, was this guy, Mr. Schrage. You know Mr. Schrage?
I believe he was a student at
one of the people who reached out to you?
Yeah, I think he may have been in touch in terms of setting things
up. And these people, you didn't know them. You were getting, this was sort of like cold calling.
You know, we're both Council on Foreign Relations members. I think, you know, I may have run into him council stuff previously. That's at least what he...
What's your take about what's going on in the House of Representatives right now, where they want to take down Bill Barr because Bill Barr said he's going to investigate the origins, why you were wiretapped, why Carter Page was spied on as well?
He is an absolute hero. And, you know, I have...
Who is?
Well, President Trump, first of all, but what Attorney General Barr is to start reforming our justice system. I've asked Director Wray to send some correct information to the Oklahoma, the Chief Judge Joe Heaton, you know, based on these false allegations.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, they still have done nothing on this so far.
Carter
I want
Page.
him to send this immediately.
Thank
please.
you so much. Carter Page joining us. We'll be right back.